She was 11 years old when millions of strangers started watching her grow up. No privacy, no normal teenage years, just cameras, wilderness, and a family that had built their entire identity around living differently from everyone else. For most of the kids on Alaskan Bush People, that upbringing shaped them in ways viewers never fully saw. But Rain Brown's story didn't just unfold on screen, it exploded off it, and the girl, once nicknamed Bush Barbie, has become one of the most talked about names connected to that show for reasons nobody could have predicted back when it all started. This is what really happened. Her full legal name is Merry Christmas Catherine Raindrop Brown. That alone tells you something about the world she was born into. Rain came into the world on November 23, 2002 in Hoona, Alaska, the youngest of 7 kids born to Billy and Amy Brown. By the time she could walk, the family had already built a life completely removed from modern society. No consistent address, no conventional schooling, no real roots in any one place. The Browns drifted through the Alaskan wilderness, and that was just life. That was all Rain ever knew. When Alaskan Bush People premiered on Discovery in 2014, Rain was 11. She became the little sister the audience adopted, bright-eyed, funny, clearly different from her brothers. While the boys leaned into the rugged survivalist image the show was selling, Rain had other interests. She played the ukulele, she loved fashion. She'd earned the nickname Bush Barbie because no matter where the family was camped, she found a way to care about how she looked. It was endearing. It made her relatable in a way that the rest of the cast sometimes wasn't. But there was always a question underneath the surface of the show that fans only started asking later. What does it actually do to a kid growing up like that? Alaskan Bush People ran for 14 seasons and 114 episodes. For the better part of a decade, it was one of Discovery's biggest draws. The premise was simple: a family living off the grid, surviving on their wits, disconnected from the modern world. Audiences loved it, but the cracks started showing early. Questions about how authentic the lifestyle really was circulated for years. Former insiders and local Alaskans raised eyebrows at certain elements of the show's presentation. The family's off-grid existence was, at minimum, a lot more complicated than what aired. And in 2020, reality hit hard in a completely different way. A wildfire ripped through the family's property in Washington state, destroying their home. Whatever the cameras had shown, the consequences of that fire were very real. Then in 2021, Billy Brown died. He was 68. And everything changed. Billy Brown was the anchor of the whole operation, the patriarch, the dreamer, the man whose vision had pulled the entire family into the spotlight in the first place. Whatever people thought of him or the show, his death left a hole that was impossible to fill. For Rain, it hit differently than it did for her older siblings. They'd had years of adult life, years of building their own sense of who they were outside of their father's shadow. Rain was 18 when he died. She'd essentially grown up on that show, and now the man at the center of it was gone. She started disappearing from social media for stretches of time. When she came back, her posts had shifted. Less polished content, more raw. She talked openly about depression. She talked about struggling to find her footing. She became unexpectedly a voice for mental health in a space that doesn't always make room for that kind of honesty. Fans responded to it. They sent messages, flowers, support. Rain had always been the most relatable brown kid, and in grief, that quality only became more visible. The show itself limped along through 2022 before going quiet. The last episode aired in December of that year, and Discovery never officially confirmed a cancellation. They just stopped making it. A $500,000 lawsuit filed against Billy Brown's estate by a former business partner added another layer of uncertainty over whether the show would ever come back at all. For Rain, the end of Alaskan Bush People meant the end of the only professional identity she'd ever known. She was 20 years old with no show, no father, and no clear path forward. Late 2023, Rain started showing up on Instagram looking different. Lighter, somehow, more settled. Then in December of that year, she made it official. She'd fallen for someone. His name was Josiah Lorton. They'd met at work, of all places. Rain had been waitersing, and Josiah was the head chef. She described it as magnetic. She gushed about him in the way people do when they're genuinely surprised by their own feelings, calling him her hero, her home, her forever. It was a lot, fast. But fans mostly responded warmly to seeing her happy. What didn't go unnoticed was the age gap. Rain was 21. Josiah was 33, a full 11 years older. For some fans, it was a footnote. For others, it raised questions. particularly given Rain's background and the emotional instability she'd been open about in the years since her father's death. In July 2024, Rain casually dropped in an Instagram comment that Josiah wasn't her boyfriend, he was her husband. Fans were blindsided. She hadn't announced a wedding, hadn't posted photos, hadn't given any indication it was coming. Then in January 2025, she made it fully official, posting a photo with the caption, "Yes, I'm married, y'all." She signed her name Rain Lorton. The ceremony, whenever exactly it happened, was private. None of her 6 siblings had been there. That detail sat strangely with people. A family that had spent a decade performing closeness for millions of viewers on television, and not one of them made it to Rain's wedding. The tension between Rain and her brother Noah had been building for a while before it went public. In August 2024, Noah and his wife Rain filed a petition for order of protection against Rain in court. The filing accused her of unlawful harassment and stalking. They claimed there had been a threat of violence with references to a firearm. They asked that Rain be required to surrender all weapons, stay at least 1,000 feet away from them and their children, and be legally barred from posting anything negative about them online. It was a startling set of claims, one sibling filing legal paperwork against another, in a family that had built their public image entirely on loyalty and togetherness. The court denied the order in September 2024. The paperwork was found to be insufficiently supported. Essentially, the filing lacked the documentation needed to move forward. Noah and Rain did not refile, but Rain didn't stay quiet. She posted a video on Instagram, later deleted, where she addressed the situation. She wrote that his little sister, who struggles with mental health and thoughts of ending it all, should be the last person he would attack. It was raw and clearly painful. Whether it was a calculated response or a genuine outburst, it showed someone fighting on multiple fronts at once. Then came January 2025. The same month, Rain officially announced her marriage, and news broke that Noah and Rain had separated. The very people who'd tried to get a restraining order against Rain were now splitting up themselves. The irony wasn't lost on anyone following the story. Things escalated sharply in early April 2025. On April 7th, Noah called law enforcement and requested a welfare check on his mother Amy and his sister Rain. The claims he made during that call were alarming. He told officers that Amy might be in deteriorating health and that both she and Rain were using meth. He said Josiah was always armed and shouldn't have weapons. Then he added something that stopped people cold. He told police that Rain and their mother had started referring to Josiah as the next Messiah. That detail, pulled directly from police documents, struck many followers as one of the most concerning things to surface in the entire saga. Officers attempted the welfare check. They couldn't locate Amy directly, but a person who had recently been with Rain and Josiah told police the couple had a large bag packed with pills. All of this was allegation. Rain denied the drug claims. She pushed back publicly. But the picture being painted was of a young woman in a genuinely chaotic situation, surrounded by conflicting stories with no clear ground beneath her feet. 4 days later, the situation took a turn nobody saw coming. On April 11, 2025, Rain Brown and Josiah Lorton were arrested in Okanogan, Washington. Rain was charged with first-degree burglary, first-degree malicious mischief, and second-degree criminal trespass. Josiah faced the first 2 charges as well. They were booked into Okanogan County Jail. Neither was required to post bail, but both were held until an April 14th hearing, where a judge found probable cause to move the cases forward. The full picture of what allegedly happened emerged through court documents obtained in the weeks that followed. Josiah's uncle, Jason Ayerst, had reported a burglary to police on March 27th, nearly 2 weeks before the arrests. He told investigators that Rain and Josiah had been on the property of his rental home and that afterward a significant list of items had gone missing. According to the report, what was allegedly taken included $75,000 in cash, $85,000 worth of gold coins, $8,000 in wine and champagne, multiple firearms, and other items, bringing the total alleged value to over $170,000. Jason told police that Josiah was the only person who knew where the firearms, cash, and valuables were stored, and that as far as he was concerned, there was only one reason Josiah would have been there. Both Rain and Josiah pleaded not guilty to all charges. The case remains pending. Rain responded on Instagram on April 19th. She didn't address the specifics of the arrest directly. Instead, she pointed the finger at a former manager she claimed had stolen $43,000 from her and abused her, suggesting that the accusations against her were connected to that person's influence. She closed the post with a Bible verse, "Judge not lest ye be judged." It was the kind of statement that told fans she wasn't going to fold, but it also told them that her side of the story, whatever it is, hasn't been told yet. Then came February 2026. Ami Brown posted to Instagram with news that nobody in the fan community was expecting. Her youngest daughter, the one facing felony charges, the one estranged from at least one of her siblings, the one who'd been at the center of one of the messiest spirals in reality TV history, was pregnant. "My baby girl Rain is having a baby," Ami wrote. "Grandbaby number 11 coming soon." Rain is 23 years old. She is married to a man 11 years her senior. She is expecting her first child, and she is waiting on a court date for first-degree burglary charges that haven't been resolved. There is no clean narrative here, no easy arc. Just a young woman who grew up on camera, lost her father at a critical moment, fell in love fast, found herself inside a family feud that got ugly and legal, and is now heading into motherhood under circumstances that nobody would have scripted for that cheerful, ukulele-playing kid audiences first met in 2014. Rain Brown's story is still being written. The charges haven't been resolved. The family dynamics are still fractured in ways that may never fully heal on screen or off it. Her mother is sick. Her relationship with at least one of her brothers is shattered. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, she's preparing to bring a new life into the world. What's clear is that the version of Rain Brown that the show presented, the youngest Wolfpack member, the Bush Barbie, the plucky little sister, was never the whole picture. Real lives rarely are. The cameras caught pieces of her story, and when they stopped rolling, the story kept going, just without the filter. Whether she comes out the other side of this stronger, or whether this is the beginning of a longer unraveling, nobody knows yet. But one thing is certain, Rain Brown is not someone who's going away quietly. And this is one story that's far from over.